Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's probably time to start our meeting. I want to let the music play for just a little while so Julie Spilsbury could get the full dramatic effect of starting a city council meeting. Welcome, everyone. This is obviously our first Mesa City Council study session for the new calendar year. As I indicated earlier, we want to give a special welcome to our new Councilmember Spilsbury, for her first meeting. Welcome, Julie. I think all of us are present with the exception of Mr. Thompson. I'm not, I hadn't, Mr. Brady, did Mr. Thompson indicate he was had a conflict for this meeting, or are we just anticipating he's going to join us soon?
You know, Mayor, I didn't.
There he is.
Oh,
go.
Never mind.
All right. Welcome, Kevin. We were just asking if you were on your way, but I can see you made it. Thanks. The first item on our agenda for this meeting is to convene an executive session regarding reviews of the city clerk, auditor, attorney, and city manager. Is there a motion to convene an executive session? Thank you, Mr. Freeman, seconded by Mr. Thompson. We'll do a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Freeman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Heredia.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Duff.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Luna.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you. I vote aye as well. The motion passes. We'll now close out our Zoom meeting and go into the Zoom executive session. So just so we're clear, Mr. Brady, we're gonna click out of this Zoom meeting and log into the next Zoom link. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor, and we'll move into that room.
Okay. Thank you very much. We will reconvene this meeting, the general session, at the conclusion of the executive session. All right, thank you. We'd like to reconvene our city council meeting. We're back from the executive session and reconvening our study session. The next item on our agenda for this meeting is to review the items on tonight's regular council meeting agenda. So, Council, I know that we do have at least one staff presentation to go over the CAFR, which is one of the agenda items for tonight. So let's plan on that presentation. But and we also have one item off the consent agenda, which is the hearing just prior to the issuing the petitions for annexation for the Legacy Sports Complex. So that's that'll be on the discussion tonight. But other than that, are there questions you have regarding items on our agenda? Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. The only question I had is on item 5L. I'm curious as to whether that should be a budget discussion item during budget season. It's an increase to the term contract for solid waste disposal, recycle, and vegetative waste processing, taking it from 9.4 to 9.6 million. I'm just wondering if that shouldn't be a budget item discussion versus just an agenda item on the council meeting.
Can we not go forward with that until we talk about our budget next year?
Scott's here to answer the question. This is a contractual, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, so Mayor, Councilmember Thompson, this is a contract that we've had for several years. This is a CPI increase that is part of the contract. So every year we come back to you in January asking for more funding associated with any increases that are associated with the consumer price index. And so that's what we're doing tonight with this contract. So we're contractually obligated to follow the CPI that's called out into the contract. So I don't know that we can wait until the budget time to have these discussions about this. This is what we've done before. We do have budget within the solid waste department to cover these expenses with the slight increase that's happening.
Is this more than recycling?
It is more than recycling. It is trash. So these contracts are all of our disposal contracts. So it covers our trash, it covers our green waste, and it covers recycling. So this is all of our vendors that we deliver material to from our trucks. It's not just recycling, it is also our landfill contracts.
But certainly,
Okay, so it's not a new contract.
No.
It's just doing a CPI adjustment to the existing contract.
That is correct.
Okay.
We'll have the conversation, probably at the Council Strategic Planning and the budget, about, I think where you're alluding to is the future of, reuse, recycling, and diversion, and the plans for diversifying that. We'll have that conversation at a future date.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Council, other questions regarding tonight's agenda? Councilmember Duff.
Yes, I have a question on 5F. It's just a simple question. I don't know if Jodi is there. How many bus shelters do we have? How many are we servicing on this, keeping them repaired and cleaned and all that?
She's coming. She sat in the back thinking she wouldn't get any questions.
Mayor, Councilmember Duff, we have just about, the ones that we maintain, there's about 360 of them, but this contract also includes maintenance for our 4 park and rides and 3 transit centers as well.
Great, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Freeman.
thank you. Jodi, I just wanted to mention to you that I know I've had a bus stop issue in my district, and I appreciate you reaching out. A lot of garbage, and there's some graffiti there, and meeting some of the constituent needs. That's been great, and the possible relocation of that bus stop or one close by. So thank you for reaching out and realizing the need for change in certain areas. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Council. Before we hear the presentation on the CAFR, are there other questions regarding anything on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, just for the sake of the public or anyone who might be watching and wondering what the CAFR is, that's the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. So this is a really big deal. This is the DC financial report that talks about how we're doing or how well we're not doing. Mr. Brady, this is agenda item 7A. Is Irma or someone there that can
Yes, Mayor.
update us on how we're doing?
And as Irma is here to present, we've presented this to the Audit and Finance Committee. I think a couple of the council members, we want the entire council to hear this report. And so Irma just has a few slides to walk it through with the council.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm going to run through the presentation that I did for the Audit Finance Committee on December 14th. We have completed our audit of the financial statements as of June 30th, 2020. We received an unmodified report, which is a clean opinion. It's the kind of opinion that we want to get when we're being audited from a third party. We did not have any material findings. The CAFR follows the generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, and we comply with all the Government Accounting Standards Board's accounting standards. The next few slides are going to be financial highlights, just overall for the city. In 2020, our city's revenues increased by $39.5 million. This includes both the governmental funds, which is our general fund, our debt service funds, and our capital project funds, and the business type funds, which is our enterprise funds. The increase in $39.5 million, if you look at the chart, you can see that most of the increase was in our governmental funds. Our governmental funds increased by $77.8 million, and this is due to 2 contributing factors. The first one was the increase in our sales tax revenues, about $30 million. And then the second was the increase in the CARES funds that the city received. The city received $90 million in CARES funding. However, because it's a grant and it has eligibility requirements, we only recognize the revenue from a GAAP perspective for the funds that we spent. So we spent $42 million as of June 30th. So those 2 contributed to the $70 million increase in our governmental funds.
And Irma, let's just be clear, because I think people jump when they hear we only spent $42 million.
As of June 30th,
As of
2020.
June 30th, we took care of the rest after that. So just to make sure council knows.
And I'll be back later to talk about that. Our enterprise funds, you'll notice there was a slight decrease in our revenues. I wanted to point out that it was not our operating revenues that decreased, but we had an unusual activity in fiscal year 19. In fiscal year 19, we sold some land, Pinal County land, and we had a gain on that investment, on that sale of $44 million. So the decrease isn't that we decreased in revenues, it's just that we don't have that one-time gain on the sale of the property that we did in 2019. This just breaks down our governmental activities revenues over the last 3 years by the type. You can see that our taxes increased, and I've already kind of talked about that. That was an increase in our sales taxes, but also an increase in our shared revenues that we get from the state, from urban revenue sharing, our state sales tax share, and vehicle and highway user revenue share funds. And then the program revenues would be the next big increase, and that's where we recorded the CARES funds that we spent as of June 30th, 2020. And our total assets as a city increased to $4.6 billion. As you can see from the lightest blue color, the biggest portion of our city assets are in our capital assets. So that's our infrastructure, our buildings, our land, our water pipes, all our infrastructure. And then the next big chunk is our cash and investments. Our cash and investments also increased in comparison to the last 2 years. And our other assets stayed pretty stable, and our other assets are primarily our interest in the joint ventures that the city participates in. This slide breaks down our cash and investments as of June 30th. I'm only going to hit on a couple of them. The cash, the $27 million, that's the cash that we had with our bank as our operating account. The rest of them are in some sort of investment portfolio. The $132 million is the amount that we invest with the state's local investment pool. Cash in with trustees and physical agents, that $117 million, those are funds that are already with our trustees so that they can make our July 1st debt service payment. We always provide the funds to them before the end of the year so they have it so they can make our July 1st debt service payment. And then our biggest chunk is the long-term investments. Majority of that is managed by our third-party asset managers on our investments. And even though, I'll point out, even though they say long-term investments, they're all liquid, and we could get the funds if we needed to within a couple of days on those as well. And this highlights our total liabilities as a city. The total liabilities as a city was $3.9 billion. There are two components that make up the majority of our liabilities. The first one is our long-term obligations, which I do have a slide next. I will break that out, but it includes our utility revenue bonds and our GO bonds. And then the green is our pension and OPEB liabilities. OPEB is other post-employment benefits. Those are primarily benefits for our retirees that are eligible for medical after they retire. And I do have a slide on the pension and OPEB liabilities coming up as well. This is a snapshot of our long-term obligations. It's a comparison of our long-term debt as of June 3rd, 2019 compared to 2020. You'll notice that our obligations decreased since last year on all of them. Our general obligation bonds, which are backed by our secondary property tax, our highway user revenue bonds, and utility revenue bonds, all decreased over the prior year. And then you can see the big decrease in the excise tax obligations. Those were the bonds that we defeased in last September of 2019, which was in this fiscal year. We paid off those bonds early, that $49 million. This breaks out our pension and OPEB unfunded liability. It's broken up by the type of plan. So the ASRS pension liability or plan is for all non-city employees that are non-sworn. Our liability related to that increased from the $227 million to $235 million. And then we have our public safety PSPRS plans. Fire and police pension plans both increased as well compared to the prior year. Fire went from $203 million to $231 million, and the police went from $396 million or $0.8 million to $441 million. The PSPRS also has an OPEB plan for both police and for fire. The fire one is not a large amount, so it's not material, so we don't disclose or record that, but the police one was $10 million. And you can see where the biggest increase was in our pension and OPEB liability this year. The city's retirement plan, or OPEB plan for healthcare for retirees, increased from $746 million to $897 million. And the increases in that is all determined by the actuary. It's based on assumptions that they make on the care, the cost of health care going forward, how long people will live. That liability is the ultimate liability until the last person who's eligible passes on. So it's a long-term liability there. And that's all I have. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Irma. Council, any questions for Irma? Okay. I made this comment, Irma, when I got this presentation earlier. It's a good thing to have a boring CAFR. If you think about all the hundreds of millions of dollars that run through this city finances, and to have a team of experts come in looking for trouble and to be unsuccessful in finding, to get an unmodified report with no findings is a great testament to the quality of management that we have. So thank you, Irma, and thank you, Mr. Brady, for a boring CAFR.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Council, are there any other questions regarding any item on our agenda for the formal council meeting tonight? If there are none, we'll continue with the agenda for the study session. Next item is item 4A. That's to hear a presentation and discuss an update on the city's response to COVID-19, including the COVID-19 vaccination and an overview of the programs within the 2020 Mesa Cares program. Mr. Brady, I think you've got an army of people that have worked on this and probably several to comment on it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Really, we're trying to pull together a lot of work that's been done over the last 8 months. As you know, you've been very much part of it. This has been a remarkable program for the city to receive the funding from the federal government, but with the objective of trying to get it out as quickly as possible and most effectively to our community. What we'd like to do tonight is, we won't be able to cover every single specific program, but I think we've picked some of those larger groupings that the council is familiar with. We want to review those with you, share kind of the dynamics of where we stand as we've kind of wrapped up a lot of those programs. Some will continue, and I'll talk a little bit about it at the end. But again, I just want to express my appreciation and express how proud I am of this organization, from the city manager's office all the way down to the Parks and Rec staff that were handing out food boxes, and call takers, and everybody who, as the mayor I think rightly called it, pivoted to really providing this remarkable service to our community. So we're going to start with Irma, have her come back and give us kind of the larger financial view of the allocated resources for this program. And then we'll have her followed up with Jaye O'Donnell will come forward, and then I think it's Marc, and then Natalie wraps it up. Thank you.
Hello again. Okay.
Back.
So I'm going to provide the financial overview of the Mesa Cares dollars. I'll start off with, so the city received $90,389,000 from the U.S. Treasury as part of the CARES Act. The CARES Act funds had 3 criteria that qualified as uses. They needed to be an emergency expenditure due to the pandemic and COVID-19. They were supposed to be not accounted for in the budget most recently approved as of March 27th, 2020, and have to be incurred during the period of March 1st, 2020 and December 30th, 2020. As you can imagine, there was a lot of questions when the cities and municipalities received the funds and what was allowed and what wasn't allowed. They were all very careful and wanting to make sure that any program they set up was for things that would be eligible. So there was a lot of questions. So the U.S. Treasury provided some supplemental guidance, and they issued them sporadically throughout the months of this, from March through September, as questions came up. One of the guidance that they clarified and provided additional guidance was the use of funds to cover payroll and benefits for public safety. The U.S. Treasury provided an administrative accommodation that basically told municipalities and states and local governments and tribal governments that they could presume that any costs related to the public health and public safety of employees and public met the substantially dedicated test and would qualify for use under this program. So if a city took that presumption or a municipality took that presumption, all costs related to the public safety were covered under this CARES Act. And a lot of the municipalities and some of the states took the U.S. Treasury up on that offer and absolutely used some of the money for that. So I wanted to make sure that that was one of the things that you were aware that it was one of the very clear direction from the Treasury. I'm going to go through some of the programs that we had. We set up, from an accounting perspective, we set up a separate fund to account for all these and then separate activities to track them. So the next two slides has kind of the dollar amounts for each of the programs, and in the next slide will have a total. I wanted to point out these expenditures are through December 30th of 2020. There will be some trickling expenses that come in this month for services and goods that were purchased or that were received in June, but we didn't get the invoice until January. So there might be some expenses that come through. The Mesa Cares outreach, that was just personnel costs that, as you remember, we had the survey that the city did. So it was mainly the cost of our staff that were manning the phones or an IT getting the call center set up and the advertising related to it and all the public relations. So all the costs that employees spent on the communication and manning the phones went into the Mesa Cares outreach activity. The Feeding Mesa, our food distribution, was $7 million, as Chris mentioned. Marc will come up later and give you more information on that. But that includes all the costs related to the purchase of the food, contributions that were made to local food banks and not-for-profits, and our people's time in working the food banks. Small business reemergence was about $6.5 million, and that includes the rental assistance and the utility assistance that was provided to the small businesses, and advertising and other assistance to small businesses, which Jaye will go into more detail on. And household relief, that was just the city's portion of the program, and that was primarily to utility assistance to residents. The city spent $5.8 million. There was a little bit of rental assistance in there as well, but the majority of it was utility assistance. The homeless assistance, which was of $3 million, that covers both our police officers and their time related to the program, and also the homeless housing and other services like cleaning or up the encampments and that kind of thing. Educational access for City of Mesa K-6 students. Their city contributed $6.6 million. The majority of it went to Mesa Public Schools, and then a small amount went to Gilbert Public Schools as well to be used to benefit the K-6 students in either providing them laptops or other equipment that they needed to do long-distance learning. The business continuity and remote access, the city spent about $4.6 million. That covers all the costs related to setting up all the employees for teleworking and the cost of having public meetings in this environment with Zoom and the equipment that was needed and the additional licenses that were needed, either be for Zoom or for Teams to have those virtual meetings. The majority of it was equipment so that employees could telework. And that covered about $4.6 million. The next three items, so the health and safety.
Irma?
Yes.
Excuse me, Irma. Councilmember Duff has a question.
I might be asking this prematurely, but looking ahead on the slides when I said earlier, there was an expenditure of about $97,000 for the Arts and Culture Department, and I was wondering what section is that in your summary?
That went under the small business reemergence. So it would be part of that $6.5 million.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that because that was part of the grants to the performing arts groups?
Right, yeah. So Mayor, Irma, there were so many different types of programs. We had to find a way to kind of consolidate these under just these headings, but because those were, even though they were nonprofits, we treated it, we just, for purposes of presenting, we've just put them under the Small Business Emergence Program. And I think we also try to be careful, not be careful, but we try to be similar to the way we're treating the small businesses. Like for the number of months we helped them with their utilities or the rent, we try to use that formula to be consistent with how we were doing the small businesses also.
Thank you.
Health and safety was another program, and we spent $3.6 million. Under the health and safety program, that's where we had a lot of the healthy building retrofit. So the plexiglass, the filters, sanitation stations. We also included all the PP&E, all the disinfecting and cleaning supplies, additional cleaning services that were needed to do some of the deep cleaning. Also, the COVID testing that the city has been doing falls into that category as well. So anything that fell into either keeping the buildings and the environments clean and sanitary and health and safety for the public, we classify into that category. The Family First paid time, as you may know, the part of the CARES Act also included the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. So employees who met certain criteria were given or provided 80 hours of time to, and they were paid those hours instead of being against their buckets. The categories were if they themselves were sick, or if they were taking care of somebody that had COVID and was sick, or if they had been exposed and needed to stay home and wait in quarantine. It also expanded the FMLA under certain circumstances. For example, if the daycare center was closed when we had the shutdowns and the parents couldn't take their kids to daycare, so they had to stay home. So it had a couple different areas that qualified. The total employees that used that time that was available, it was about $1 million overall that the city spent on that.
So again, that way the employees don't have to use their personal sick leave. So it kind of allowed as, so employees were, not trying to come to work even though they may not be feeling well or can't take care of their children. So that was a program set up, and we've counted that cost here. Now that's still ongoing, obviously. We still have some of that taking place now. But we're continuing to offer the program, the city funding it, even after, the program ended
December 30th.
December 30th, but we're still, and I'll talk a little more about this, but we're allowing employees to continue. The city will cover that cost and not count it towards against their own sick leave for now. Now, we'll have a different discussion once we know employees have had the opportunity to receive a vaccine. Then at that point, we will then begin requiring that if they take that time off after they've had the opportunity to receive the vaccine, then it will be charged to their personal sick leave.
And then the last area is the presumed public safety COVID-19 response. So that was the cost related to our police and our fire. We captured the cost related to patrol and police and the first responders and fire, and that was $92 million. So as you can see, it adds up to a total of $132,016,355 that the city spent as part of the Mesa Cares Initiative programs that are being accounted for in the relief fund that we set up. The source of revenue to cover these expenses was from the initial $90 million that the U.S. Treasury provided to the city. The city, those funds also earned interest. So as we were spending down the amounts that were left or were still available or unspent, I should say, earned some interest. And then the general fund contributed the remaining $94.9 million to equal the expenditures that we spent. In addition to the Mesa Cares programs that we set up and all the initiatives that I just went through, there were two other programs that we participated with Maricopa County. Maricopa County provided the $6 million for eviction and foreclosure prevention program, which the city had an agreement with the county, and the city ran and was able to provide rental assistance to Mesa residents as part of that program. In addition, the Maricopa County also had their own small business program that they provided assistance to small businesses throughout Maricopa County. They included Mesa businesses as part of that program, and they spent about $4.6 million to our Mesa businesses, and the city committed $2 million to that program to the county.
Yes, I'm sorry, Councilmember Duff, go ahead.
I just want to back up one slide, going back to the public safety response, the 92 million. What part of the budget does that represent as far over the time period of March to December?
Yes, March to December.
I'd have to look at the CAFR. I don't even know what our overall expenditures are in public safety during that time in a normal, without considering there's not CARES. What was our budget for public safety?
Yeah, Councilman Duff, this never changed our budget in public safety. All this is really saying is the way the CARES dollars came down, and you'll see this is how the state of Arizona did it with all the other cities. They said, listen, we're going to be audited at the end of the day with this program and how we spend the dollars. So once we got guidance on that we could actually use or charge CARES dollars to the existing public safety services effort, we decided that would be the most defensible audit, and that's how all the other cities in the state did it, is we said, listen, we're just going to track from March through December all the payroll expenses for police and fire that are kind of the front line. And that's what we're going to send to the Treasury, even though we already have all of that payroll already existing and was already budgeted in our general fund budget. But what it did is then it allowed us to say, okay, Treasury, we met your standards to qualify these dollars, and then it freed up effectively the dollars in the general fund, because many of the programs, and sometimes it was just the small, hey, can we help out the Boys and Girls Club? Can we help out these arts groups or whatever? We, as much as we tried to run the programs and the documentation, we knew at the end of the day, there would be a big, I mean, they can be audited, but we don't have to take them, we don't have to submit those to the US Treasury for audit. They'll pass Irma's test. So that's how we've done this program, is we've tried to we created a lot of more non-specific dollars in the general fund by sending to US Treasury the entire payroll for public safety. That's taken care of, that's been submitted. We believe that all of that will be accepted by US Treasury. But because we had already, those payrolls had already been budgeted in the city, we now have the ability, we've had the ability this whole time to have the flexibility to use our general fund dollars for these other programs and not spend so much time worrying about how we're gonna document it and send it to the US Treasury. So it just made it a little cleaner for us, if that makes sense.
So in other words, from March through December, this $92 million could represent 100% of the payroll for public safety? Is that what you're saying?
Pretty close, I think.
It wouldn't represent 100%, but a big chunk of it.
Again, it's just the frontline
Yes, so
sworn. So it doesn't include upper
Administration.
management, it doesn't
Administration,
include support services or anything. It's just directly for a firefighter.
Firefighter was
Police.
front line, and for police, it was the patrol. Anything that they would record to patrol, that was the only cost that were moved over. So any other police, PD payroll that was not in patrol
And it was
would
just
still, it was
straight
just.
time.
No, included everything.
Did it include overtime?
Overtime, included the benefits. That was the other clarification that US Treasury provided. It wasn't just payroll dollars for the wages. It also included all the fringe benefits that went along with it. But it was
Okay.
not 100% of their budget.
But it's not of their budget, but of the payroll for the front line.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then for the general fund line item there, how does that appear on the budget? How will that appear when we took general fund dollars?
It would be a transfer out of the general fund and a transfer into the relief fund. And we had a little bit of that in the June 30th, as of June 30th as well. So if you were looking at the general fund in the CAFR as an example, you would see a line that says transfer out. And so that would have been part of that transfer out. And then you would see a line in the relief fund of transfer in for that same dollar amount.
Okay, great, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mayor, you would,
Thank you.
Move on to the next presentation.
Thank you.
I can't see.
Yes.
Council, any additional questions for Irma?
It's like-
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Irma.
I'm glad I'm second. Hello, Mayor and Council. It's nice to be with you tonight. I'm Jaye O'Donnell, the Assistant Economic Development Director, and I'm here to present the top-level findings for the Small Business Reemergence Program. If you recall, our program was a three-tiered approach to assist eligible Mesa businesses for 90 days of utilities and rent payments. The technical assistance piece of the overall program was to provide customized training and services to those businesses who needed to accelerate their recovery and also to promote resiliency so they could not only recover faster but thrive, especially in the next sort of challenge that comes to the marketplace. And then the marketing campaigns, which I won't be covering in depth tonight, but we did target visitors in drive markets promoting vacations in Mesa and also local and regional residents to shop Mesa businesses. So I hope that I'll be able to come back at a later date once we've compiled all of that data to share with you again. So for the Mesa Cares Grant Program highlights, if you recall, last summer we helped 525 businesses through utility and rental assistance in the amount of $4.64 million. Irma also mentioned the Maricopa County award of $4.6 million to an additional, or some of the same actually, 220 Mesa businesses, and they utilized $2 million of the Municipal Mesa Cares funds for that as well. The technical assistance program was essentially like starting a business from scratch and very quickly assembling a high quality technical assistance program. I just wanted to remind everybody that we started the technical assistance program after the financial grant program was off the ground and awards were already being made. So in a 6-month period, we designed a program, released RFPs, selected vendors, advertised the program, we accepted and approved applications, and then we partnered with 12 local nonprofits to deliver $1.04 million in technical assistance to 250 businesses. And I've listed all of the nonprofits that we contracted to do to provide services and programs. And then through those organizations, we also partnered with an additional 35 subcontractors, so private service providers who were delivering assistance. We delivered 3,300, actually more than 3,300 hours of one-on-one assistance, which included coaching and analysis in the areas of business planning, finance, marketing, e-commerce, restaurant operations, and more. And then we also produce and aired live more than 70 webinars in similar areas, but also more on the marketing side, including social media, public relations, digital commerce, and also legal services. Of the 250 businesses who participated in the technical assistance program, 94 of them received $42,000 of personal protective equipment packages. 61 businesses received signage packages. 27 businesses were reimbursed for Mesa al fresco patio expansions. And the cool thing about this program is we actually had 48 companies apply and be approved, and then we wound up reimbursing 27 of those businesses. 25 restaurants participated in hosted events, as well as participated in 100+ hours of one-on-one specialized consulting that was geared toward restaurant operations, things like menu profitability, supply chain, and areas that are special to restaurants only. Additionally, 13 businesses received rental assistance, which is another thing that we wanted to do through the grant program, so we made this available through the technical assistance program, and that was at the Fuerza Local Community Kitchen in Mesa. I wanted to just paint a little bit of a picture in terms of the businesses that we were helping with this program. During the financial grant application process, we discovered that many of the businesses were not very sophisticated when it came to using technology or using social media or e-commerce. Some of the businesses did not even have a website or a computer. A few of them who did have websites, but the websites were several years old and had not been updated and had limited functionality. So these companies needed a real bridge for the digital divide. And so we created programs where we built, for 68 businesses, we built new websites or refreshed existing ones, really geared toward optimizing their search engine so that they would be listed higher on the Google search. So 47 businesses also had digital virtual tours published online, which also helped. And then I think one of the most impactful programs that we created with the Mesa Chamber of Commerce and Mesa Community College was computer literacy training. There was a beginner level and an intermediate level. 18 businesses participated in one or the other, and after they had completed each class, they wound up getting a laptop with Microsoft Office installed on it for a year. One of the more special programs, I think, was working with 10 Spanish-speaking business owners. They completed a computer literacy class, a beginner class, and right away they wanted to do an Excel follow-up class. So they also received laptops after they completed those classes. Excuse me. Before the last slide, I did want to mention just the top level results of the visitor marketing campaign that was really focused on recovery and getting heads back in beds. As you all know, the visitor industry has really been devastated during the pandemic, and to this day continues to suffer. So we really tried to focus on ways to bring visitors back and book hotel room nights. So with the Expedia campaign that Visit Mesa executed, there were 6,900 room nights booked through Expedia, $926,400 in total gross bookings through Expedia due to this campaign, and 40 Mesa incentive vacation packages were booked. And if you remember, that was the promotion where if you were an Arizona resident and you booked 2 nights or more in a Mesa hotel, you could get $150 in vouchers to dining and attractions in Mesa. So people are already asking, will this program continue and how do we keep helping businesses? The good news is that the CARES funding created new systems and new relationships and new ideas on how we can work together to better serve these small micro businesses and entrepreneurs. We did have a very sharp focus on our target and who and how we wanted to serve them, so I think that's what worked really well. And with the CARES funding, we were able to really build some new big ideas to be implemented. And one of those was creating an online platform called Mesa Hub. And it now houses the 70+ webinars on a variety of topics and acts as an ongoing resource to 250 businesses. So that will stay. 20 of those webinars now are offered in Spanish or subtitled in Spanish and also Chinese. We can continue to translate those depending on the appetite going forward for funding. We also are using the platform to provide networking and communications for businesses, between businesses and the city. It's really a neat platform because it does allow us to conduct real-time surveys, provide promotions for individual businesses, and then businesses can refer or make referrals on the same platform. So for us, it's great because the real-time data analytics are extremely valuable. We're now in the process of putting our final report and recommendations together from our client survey results, along with the lessons that we've learned, along with our vendors, to inform future programs and services. And I'm assuming that we'll come back to council with a proposal for discussion and to get feedback and make sure that we're aligned with council's strategic initiatives. One program we would like to expand right away is the highly successful Mesa Alfresco program that was adopted in September. We would like to do Mesa Open Air that would allow other businesses and not just restaurants to temporarily move their waiting areas outdoors to parking spots or sidewalks or green spaces. And obviously the businesses would need to pay for the equipment that they might use, but we would like obviously to waive those permit fees if at all possible. So I look forward to coming back and presenting additional recommendations for the programs and services to help the Mesa small business community. If you have any questions at this time, I'm happy to answer, or if you would like me to wait until the end, I'm happy to do that as well.
Thank you, Jaye. I know Councilmember Duff has a question. Go ahead, Jen.
One question and a lot of thank you and gratitude, but on the county dollars, did we administrate that or get involved with that, or is that figure just a noted? I know some of our partner organizations helped with that, but did the city get involved with the administration of the county awards?
Mayor and Councilmember Duff, the city did not administer those particular funds. I believe that the county contracted with the Arizona Community Foundation to handle that. We did send out multiple notifications, not only on social media, but directly to our technical assistance participants and those who applied for the financial assistance in the past, to let them know this funding was available. So we know that a lot of the businesses in our program did participate, they applied, and many of them were funded through the county.
Thank you. And I wanted to say thank you to you and everybody that worked with you on putting together these programs for the small businesses and talking to small businesses. It was everything to them. They'll well up in tears and tell you how it saved their business and made it better and more resilient. And we know the resilience of our city is built upon small businesses making it. So it was critical to the welfare of those businesses and their families and to our city. So thank you very much for the dedication. I know it wasn't easy. The applications had to be almost handheld to go through them, and you've made it work. So thank you for your creativity on that and really the diligence and research to help businesses that really were not resilient enough to make it. And through this program, they are. And so thank you very much. And I wanted to note that you, in the midst of all this going on, did host a digital summit on small business resilience in partnership with a grant from NLC and some other cities. So thank you for putting that together as well. You've been a little busy. I couldn't be more proud and more impressed by the work that you've done, and look forward to continuing the assistance for small businesses. Thanks.
Thank you, my
Thank
pleasure.
you, Councilmember Duff. Are there other questions for Jaye? Thank you, Jaye. I'll just echo what Councilmember Duff said. I think of all of the city staff, there's a few people that stand out as really taking the brunt of this and working exceptionally hard in our response, and you're one of them. And so I just want to compliment you personally for the way you pivoted from being the Deputy Economic Development Director, which you continued to be, but also really one of the heavy lifters on our city COVID response. So thank you for all that you did personally. I know you put a lot of late nights and weekends into this, and it didn't go unnoticed.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I had a team, a great team of people supporting me, so thank you so much.
You bet.
Marc?
Marc Heirshberg, then Ed Quedens.
Good evening, Mayor Council. Good to see you. On Feeding Mesa. So this seems like it was just yesterday that I was here in mid-April talking about standing up this program, and that later that afternoon, we had already distributed, with your blessing and your approval to move forward with the Feeding Mesa program, $1 million to help the food banks immediately begin purchasing food as they were running out quickly, and then standing up the rest of these programs relatively quickly as well. So this was has become a labor of love for many of us in parks, recreation, and community facilities in particular, but as well as some other departments that have been crucial in supporting us, most notably PD, fire and medical, and arts and culture. The drive-through food distributions, which all of you, I believe, have participated in and helped support, whether it's through United Food Bank, Midwest Food Bank, or House of Refuge. We've served over 66.2 thousand total households, an average of 1,400 families of households a week. That's distributing more than 4.2 million pounds of food, which equates to over 3.5 million meals provided. And then again, our canned food drives, that was one of the things, is more of us were staying at home and grocery shopping and buying food at the grocery store. The supply chains all changed, and the food banks were having trouble keeping up with the canned food demands to put in those food boxes and where to go. So we worked with each of you to host a couple of food drives in each of your districts at various locations and times throughout the summer. We appreciate your support in helping us promote those. And over the course of those canned food drives, we collected 30,500 pounds of food and redistributed those to the different food banks as well. Restaurant buyout program. I believe there are pictures and videos of each of you in a kitchen at a local restaurant helping prepare meals. We appreciate your support, as well as the 41 local restaurants that participate in this event to help us serve 51 hospitals, care facilities, and essential worker offices. The idea being, with these 61.2 thousand meals that were distributed directly to those facilities, that kept them there caring and working at those care facilities and taking care of their patients, rather than going back out into the community with potential exposure and exposing others within the community, as well as during this trier time, keeping those Mesa restaurants busy, keeping their kitchens active, and purchasing those meals to help them out during this difficult time as well. The meal preparation program, this was a partnership between our contract caterer, Personal Touch Catering at the Convention Center, as well as the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities staff and Arts and Culture staff, who we took their day jobs and flipped them into sous chefs, and they became working the front line of meal prep to help provide these meals to agencies that had a need, nonprofit agencies such as Salvation Army, Paz de Cristo, or Operation Off the Streets, that needed prepackaged meals, arranged meals that were all ready to go and could just be reheated and served. So we provided 134,000 meals, approximately 5,000 meals a week. And we couldn't have done both the restaurant buyout program or this program without the assistance of Waste Not Arizona, who became a critical partner in helping us get these meals out the door and delivered to these essential nonprofit agencies. So appreciate their support as well. That was really a labor of love. We served over 43,000 hours, labor hours have gone into this program. 84 different nonprofit agencies have been served. And the meal distribution program is one of those that Mr. Brady mentioned will continue, again, starting this Friday with the distributions as that need continues to be recognized within the community. We'll continue with United Food Bank and those distributions at the Mesa Convention Center. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have or pass it on to Ed.
Thank you, Marc. Council, questions for Mr. Heirshberg? Marc, my comments to Jaye, I could echo it with you and your staff as well. I think many of us took tours of food banks and other food distribution events, over the last several months, and it was great to see that Parks and Rec staff, Mesa Arts Center staff, librarians, they all became food bank staff and were very heavily involved in directly responding to food needs in our community. So it was great to see how nimble and how quickly you and your staff pivoted and addressed the needs of our community. So thank you to you as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and as Jay mentioned as well, this was, and I highlighted the labor hours that went into it. I couldn't be more proud, as Mr. Brady mentioned at the beginning, of our staff and the way they responded and their resiliency to help serve the community and turn on a dime whatever was needed. They were there. So hats off to all of our staff that was involved.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Councilmember Duff has something.
I just want to say thank you for organizing this. I've seen cities that were smaller than us, and you saw on TV where people are in line for 8 hours, 9 hours, all day just to get food. And I know if you were hungry in Mesa, there was food available, and it was easily available. It was very organized. I lived not too far from the convention center, so I would see it every week. And it was well managed, and there were lines for sure, but it's not the extreme lines, you know, maybe an hour, something like that. And so I know anybody in Mesa, if you were hungry, food was available, and it was well organized and well run. And thank you for doing that, and kudos to you and your staff.
Thank you, Councilmember Duff.
Man, it's probably good to know that you didn't have to be from Mesa to take advantage of this program either. When I would assist with these programs, I mean, we were filling up trunks from people from Glendale and all over the valleys, and I think that's great. I'm glad we could do that. So thanks again. Who's next, Mr. Brady?
Mr. Quedens is next up, sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'll start with three quick slides that represent the impact to our utility revenue, but they also reflect the need that was out in the community. So the first slide is we began tracking our total past due on utility accounts at the beginning of April. And as you see, that number continued to grow as the pandemic went on. It peaked on September 15th, which reflects the point at which we began to advertise that we were going to resume our utility delinquent account turnoffs. But it also reflects the point in time where the safety net program that we discussed with the council several months ago was actually implemented. And as soon as those two things combine, you can start to see the impact that we were able to make with the community. Certainly the pandemic did not get any better as we reached that point. It was simply that we were able to help customers get that incentive to come in and seek some of the assistance that we had available and then to put it out into the community. But before I leave that, I should say we started out April at about $2 million in total past due, and we are back down a little bit below that. I did look at the previous year's balance for the beginning of January, and we are about only at this point about $250,000 higher than we were in January of 2020. So we've made a significant impact both in the community as well as our total past due. Delinquent accounts, this is a count of the delinquent accounts, so it's showing the same trend. But as you can see, at our peak in September, we had 10,000 of our 185,000 utility accounts that had past due balances. So this was pretty significant. And again, we've been able to bring that number down to a place where we are back in a normal range. My third slide is our delinquent turnoff orders. If you recall, we suspended and held all our turnoff orders for delinquent accounts starting on March 9th. We began in the middle of September to advertise that we were going to resume that on October 4th. We started with our Pinal County customers where we weren't able to provide assistance, but Pinal County was. We also worked with our County Islanders, as well as our businesses. And just as a note, with each of our businesses, we have one dedicated staff member that works with those business accounts before we get to the point where we actually turn those businesses off. And as you can see from that October 1st timeline to present, we made significant impact on bringing those delinquent accounts that were eligible for a turnoff down to, again, a normal level. My final slide is, the success of the program. So there were two main pathways that a citizen could get assistance. One was through Mesa Can. Mesa Can's program offered assistance with Mesa Utilities as well as SRP and Southwest Gas. We also discussed with council and implemented what we called the Safety Net program. And the Safety Net program was conducted by the Business Services Credit staff. And it was a shortened application and an expedient response. In many cases, a customer could stand outside of 55 North Center, fill out the application, give it to the security guard, and in a few minutes, we were able to come back outside and notify that customer that they had been awarded money. The program also changed between the time we started the program and the time we got to the Safety Net program. We were paying off the delinquent balance for those customers if they qualified by income and by their COVID financial impact on their family. So as you can see, through the Mesa Can program, since June 15th, we were able to push out about $1.6 million through that program. And the Safety Net program, we were able to push out a little over 2.8 million. So the real impact, we were able to award 8,753 applicants assistance totaling $4.45 million. And that would have been from June 15th to the time we closed the program just before Christmas. So we are deem it very successful, but it's also, it has been a lot of work, but it's been extremely rewarding to see the relief on the customer's face and in their voices when we talk to them on the phone and tell them that they've been awarded money and that burden was relieved from them. So we are, my staff and I are extremely appreciative that we got to participate in this program and see those results. And that's,
Thank you, Ed.
and I have time for questions if you have any.
Thank you. Council, questions for Ed? Ed, I'll just make the obvious comment, helping on more than 8,000 people with their utility bills and getting out of their delinquencies. I don't know how many families that equates to preventing homelessness, but it's substantial. And that would have been, so the human impact of this, I think, can't be overstated. So thank you to you and your department for a job well done. Francisco.
Hey, thanks, Mayor. Hey, Ed, I know there is an issue with some backlog. Is the program, either Mesa Can or our program, still awarding residents at this point, or it all finished in December?
So the Mesa Can program closed December 4th, and the Safety Net program closed December 23rd, and that's tied to the end of the CARES money availability. And I know we are looking at additional assistance programs because the pandemic is not done. And I think Mr. Brady will be coming back with that information.
Right, but we took all the applicants that were sitting
Yes.
there. So if we had received them before those dates and they hadn't been processed, we still processed them. I
Yes,
guess.
there's probably, if I remember right, there's about 25 applications that we're finalizing currently, but that is all of them.
We're still working through the backlog, but we'll have it out the door pretty quickly.
The backlog is very small at this point.
And so none of them would have been cut off.
Correct.
We just need, sometimes it's documentation and follow-up on the application. And we're hoping, we'll see when we get more guidance under CARES too, if it allows us to use funds for that same purpose too.
Thank you. Councilmember Duff.
I'm on the gratitude train today, apparently. But Thank you for putting together the safety net program. That really made a huge difference in being able to make those expenditures so quickly and be seamless for our residents. So I know it was a lot of work and a tremendous amount of demand to turn that around so quickly, but thank you for making that program. It's over half of the expenditure that, the funds that we provided on utilities. So that was very creative and very worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brady, I know you referenced CARES Act 2, that there was some additional federal legislation passed at the end of last year, and there is still some ongoing funding to assist with homeless prevention, correct?
Well, we believe it'll include, yes, eviction prevention. We hope it includes utilities. We've signed off on the agreement to accept the dollars. We're still waiting to get all the particular details on the programs, but as soon as we have those, we'll let you know. We anticipate they'll be a little more specific and maybe also create lower thresholds as far as who may be eligible to receive the benefits. But we're anxious to get those guidelines so we can start reaching out to the community that would be eligible for those in the future.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. I wrote down some comments and I'd like just to mention them. First of all, when Jaye gave her presentation and talked about the webinars, are they going to be available for businesses to look at, or maybe I missed that in her presentation? So will they be available for use?
So, Councilman Freeman, I think she mentioned the hub as being the location where they can now, it's on slide, I don't have there it is, 15. So the hub, oh, go ahead, there's Jaye. Sorry, I didn't see you. I hope I'm saying the right thing. Go ahead.
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, the webinars, where they're housed where Susan can go back and look at them again. I was
Yes.
talking about the hub.
Yes,
As being,
they're all available.
So they're online at what we call the hub. And so right now she has, 70 webinars available for people. So we purchased the
Use
content,
and
the use,
licensing.
the licensing. So beyond just through the end of the year, those will continue to be available for businesses going into the future.
Correct.
So I guess my question is, how are we going to promote that? I mean, are we going to use our social media or whatever platforms that we can invite people to access these webinars? So yeah, I just like to make sure that we're implementing those so that the general public or whomever can get to them.
Sure, that's something it's ongoing now, and certainly we can develop some branding and opportunities. Jaye and I are working on a presentation to bring to council at some point in the future about not only this, but an entire small business emergence program. And so this would be included with that. We'd like to kind of put it in an umbrella of small business outreach, or I'm not sure what the word we're going to use, but some kind of brand program. We're looking for a council to give us some ideas, but we want to make this an ongoing program for small business in Mesa.
Great. I think that's vital to our integrity of our city. The other thing, I was talking to Mr. Richens about all the food distribution that was done in our community, and they did such a fantastic work, United Food Bank, in getting that out, complimenting him and his staff. And I don't know if we're going to have a food distribution 2.0 in the future, but I know that that's still a need in our community. So if the opportunity comes to utilize and leverage food to our community members is very important. And that ties into my one about the utility assistance program. I appreciate Ed and his comments on that, but we need to continue to sustain our residential and small businesses as well as any large businesses that need help through the distribution of these monies. But kudos, I want our city employees to, I know a lot of them, it's kind of like when you're playing a football game and you call an audible and players go into different positions they're not used to. And that's what happened to a lot of departments. And so from my office, I appreciate that. And thank you for your diligence and support. And we want everybody to be successful and be employed here at the City of Mesa. So with that, Mayor, thank you. I'll yield back to you.
Thank you. Council, Mr. Brady, do you have additional staff?
We have one more, yeah, well, we only say the best for last. So Natalie's here to talk about our homeless programs because that's important too. So she has a few slides she'd just like to review with council.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to go ahead and go over 3 programs for you. I'm going to talk about the rent assistance, which kind of complements the utility assistance that you just heard about. I'm going to talk about the homeless program off the streets, and I'm going to end with the assistance that we provided to the arts organizations. For the rent assistance, overall, we invested about $6.9 million, and this does include the $6 million that we received from the county. Maricopa County provided that to us. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for advocating for those additional dollars. They were very well used, and we expended all of them during our process and up to December 30th. The program included a partnership with Mesa Can as well as the utility assistance program. That worked really well. They were the front face. They were the first place that people had to talk to someone, make sure they were eligible, find the paperwork that was needed to ensure that we had the right documentation. They had extra hours on Saturday in the evenings, and so that provided a really nice access point for the community. We collaborated with utility assistance because from a resident's perspective, a lot of times they needed assistance with both utility and rent. And so it made sense for them to do one application at once and for us to process it like that. So it made it much easier for them. We repurposed our city staff. This was, we had city staff who weren't working, everybody's always working hard, but they had extra time, they had capacity, and so we brought them into this special project for 3 months to really help us get some of these applications out the door. We also brought back some of our reduction in workforce staff, in particular at the libraries, and so we brought them back, and they were hugely helpful as for the city. So while Mesa Can was the front door, the city was the back door in that we took a look at all the documentation to make sure it was in compliance with what was needed for the program. We paid the landlords directly, and we created all of the metrics and the documentation so that when we requested reimbursement from the county, we had what was required. The staff did a huge job of doing a lot of broad marketing for this, but they also did really targeted marketing, and thanks to the council for your help on this. They did things like even going to apartment complexes and talking very directly to landlords so that they understood what was available, and if they had residents in this condition, that they started working with the residents to come to us. We worked with the county and the, I'm trying to remember the name of the group, but we worked with legal people who worked with evictions, and so we went to the really the people who are in this world and made sure that they understood about this dollar and what was available so that we could do this. All of this happened between June of 2020 and December 30th of 2020. We did have some slow starts and some bumps along the way, but in the end we had some really amazing results, which is now on this slide. So we ended up serving a little over 1,700 households and landlords. And that included over 6,300 people in Mesa. It was about 4,700 months of rent that was covered, and an average per household was $38.75. So this was a big effort. And as Mr. Brady was describing, around the second or third week in December, we stopped taking applications. And what we've done is finished all of those applications by December 30th so that we didn't have any more backlog when it comes to the rent assistance. What we did do at that point is we started taking what we call interest forms. And we let the public know that we wanted to put them on a waiting list at this point so that if there were some additional dollars that came in the door, they'd be the first to know that it was available and the first to be able to go ahead and apply online for those additional dollars. So we do have about 1,600 of people who've indicated interest in some additional funding if it does come our way. So the homeless, health and safety, we ended up investing a little over $3 million. And one of the things that we've done, and this is core to, it's based on a core concept in our homeless master plan, is that we needed to find a way to create an immediacy of getting shelter for people. And to do that during COVID, so that we were creating health and safety, not only for homeless populations and vulnerable people that are experiencing homeless, but also for the community at large as we were trying to contain the virus and the spread of it. So before COVID, this is what our path to recovery looked like, where we started at a shelter, which sometimes required people to be very ready for recovery and to follow some rules and to be in a place where there was a little bit more focus and pressures on them to stay in line and do what they're supposed to do. So what we did with the Off the Streets program, which is what it's called now, is we added emergency housing. Using the Corona Relief Funds, we leased 100 rooms, and we were able to put people that were experiencing homeless immediately into these rooms, and to use this emergency housing as a way to help them get ready for additional recovery and services. The program itself was for 8 months, so we started this in May and continued it through the end of the year. Again, we had 100 rooms. We had on-site security, so we were making absolutely certain that the location at the hotel itself, but also for the surrounding neighborhood, was safe and secure. We partnered with a hotel that was struggling. Jaye talked about the visitors market and how they were struggling and getting beds and heads. And so this was something that we were able to do to help a local hotel, kind of stay in business and work with us. And we could not have done this without them. I want to do a quick shout out. There have been amazing partners and will continue to be as we go into 2021. We had two basic goals. Short term was really getting them off the streets immediately and getting them healthy and health and safety during COVID. Longer term, we wanted to get that focus on recovery and getting them to transition into longer term housing. Our goal was to not just dispatch people back to the streets after the coronavirus funds were no longer available. And we had a big partnership and very active police department that led with services, but also used other things for enforcement of urban camping, and even jail if we needed it to. And the courts also, with our community court, were very involved. So what we were able to achieve is the police department had a little over 4,700 field contacts from May through the end of December. Of those contacts, 417 accepted services, which basically means they came to the Off the Streets program. They did have some arrests during the program as well. And community court referred close to 50 different individuals in their program to the Off the Streets program as well. And so we ended up serving 431 people, and that included 68 children, which was a point of pride for us. And out of the people who have participated so far, 188 of them have successfully graduated from the program, meaning they stepped up and went into the next level of services and recovery and more sustainable housing. This is a photograph of some of the urban camping and encampments that we found. This is just in the Superstition Police District. And we had a really good partnership with the police department, the transportation department, solid waste, and their environmental crew, because there was, at the end of the day, 69 tons of debris that was removed in and around Mesa from these urban camps. And then last but not least are the Mesa Arts organizations. They're beloved. We heard from them, especially because we had to close down the Mesa Arts Center. They were drastically impacted by COVID. And so what we were able to do, and as Chris Brady mentioned earlier, we stayed with a model that was similar to the small business reemergence, where we provided 6 months of rent and utility assistance. So all of the Mesa founding resident companies were provided the 6 months of assistance, and some other Mesa-based arts organizations that also perform at the Mesa Arts Center and are very Mesa-based. We made sure that we looked at what their rent was, what their utility was, and we got them 6 months of support, which I know was very helpful, well-deserved, and they were just very gracious about it. With that, this is the end of this of the presentation. I do want to say that this, talk about taking a village to make something happen. This was an amazing, amazing project. It was a highlight of my personal career. The leadership that you all provided during this was what we needed. It gave us the direction that we needed, and it gave us the ability to go and stand things up very quickly. I have to tell you that there's very few departments, almost every department was involved in Mesa Cares in some way, fashion, or form. They stood up programs overnight. They did it while working remotely and being completely outside of what our systems and protocols were. And so we did this in a way that was tremendous. And so I could not be more proud of the organization and everything that we did, in addition to all the work that we did with the nonprofits, because you know, as the Vice Mayor mentioned, what we didn't want to do is duplicate service. We wanted to enhance it and take it to a new level. And so we did that with organizations like United Food Bank and Midwest Food Bank. So it's been an amazing journey, and I'm really happy to be a part of it and privileged, and I'm here for questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Natalie. We'll start with Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. Natalie, I thought we were done with the last presentation because I wanted to say my comments to that, but I just wanted to thank you for your guidance and help and support, because there was a lot of things to manage, and especially all the programs that we've talked about during this time. So again, I appreciate you and all of your staff for all you've done. And you know, as I look through some of these pictures of cleanups and the interaction between our public safety people, I mean, it's tremendous amount of work, and that means our environmental division, our solid waste cleanup, and all the things that we've had to manage is pretty insurmountable. And I appreciate reaching out to the other hotels that needed help and assistance in helping the homeless and navigating that. So it's a never-ending task, but again, I appreciate all you've done. Thank you, Mayor. Yield back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Council, other questions or comments for Natalie? Natalie, I just want to say, again, express my personal gratitude to you for the way you've gone above and beyond during this process. One of the great things that you've done for us is come up with our strategic homeless plan. And I think maybe one of the silver linings of COVID is that we've, you know, through this trial by fire, you know, of having the additional resources from the federal government, we've really been able to make that plan much more robust, and we've been able to figure out some of the things about that plan that we were stumped with. And so I just want to, on behalf of the thousands of people that are at the very bottom rung, you know, as far as resources go in our community, the way that you and those who were involved with you in serving the homeless community during this period of time, I just want to say thank you so much. And also to the arts. I mean, we're all looking forward to looking at COVID in our rearview mirror and getting back to the Mesa Arts Center and all of the things that we love about the way that our community supports arts. But if we go through this COVID experience and we return to the Mesa Arts Center, but all of our arts organizations have died, you know, over the last few months or last year, it's not going to do us much good to have a Mesa Arts Center. So that I again endorse our support of the arts and keeping those companies alive and breathing, so until we can get them back in the theaters and enjoy their productions. So thank you, Natalie. I'm looking forward to reading the book you're going to write about lessons learned from COVID.
Well, actually, Mayor, speaking of a book, all of you have a copy of this in your offices, and it's actually an online digital magazine, and it was mainly created by Casey Blake and also Lindsay Belinky, and it is chock full of information about this process. You know, it dawned on us as we were kind of going through this that this is a time in history, and we really wanted to record it. Not only because we wanted to learn from it and look back on it and understand it, we want to share it with others as we move forward. This has information, video clips, photographs, notes from residents, lots and lots of different things that really help the community understand what is Mesa Cares. Because what we've provided today is just a high-level summary of some of the main programs. There's so much more that has gone into this from an organization standpoint. So this online digital magazine will be available. It'll be updated as we keep moving forward. And we are also going to be translating that into Spanish so that it's available for our Spanish speakers as well.
Thank you. Mr. Brady, anything else on this agenda item?
That's probably enough for tonight, dear Mayor. So we'll, that's a good, there's a lot more we could talk about, but I think this gives council, hopefully the report you were looking for to kind of get a summary. There are a few things that are going to continue. Talk about food distribution. Certainly we're continuing our COVID testing for city employees. A lot of other technology improvements we're trying to do to make the workplace safe. And of course, we've committed to providing whatever resources we need to provide from the city to help administer the vaccine when that time is appropriate. So thank you.
Thank you. And the bad news is this: we're still in the middle of this COVID thing. So it's not like we can put a mission accomplished at this point. It's just lessons learned that need to be applied going forward as we continue to struggle with this. So again, on behalf of, I know I speak for the whole council, we just want to express our appreciation to city staff and everyone who has worked so hard and been so flexible and so innovative during this period of time. And appreciate your ongoing support for our community. We are in need of making progress on this agenda, so let's press on. Item 4B is appointments to various committees and boards. Council, is there a motion on this item? Thank you, Mr. Freeman, seconded by Mr. Thompson. Is there any discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Freeman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Heredia.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Duff.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Lynn.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you, and I vote aye as well, so that passes unanimously. Item 5 on this agenda is to acknowledge receipt of various board minutes. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Mr. Thompson, seconded by Councilmember Duff. I will do again a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Freeman, how do you vote? Vice Mayor Freeman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Heredia.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Duff.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Luna.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you. I vote aye as well. That passes unanimously. Next item is our current event summary and reports on meetings and conferences attended. Council, I know we've been off for a few weeks, and I know you've been very busy, but so who would like to share something? Whatever you have before us. Councilmember Duff.
Yes, I want to give a shout out to Mesa PD, Code Compliance and Transportation for putting together a team up to clean up event in Guerrero neighborhood. I joined them on Saturday, December 12th and 19th, and they made a tremendous impact in being able to work with the residents and do a cleanup for that area. It is so valued by the residents and everybody involved, and it was such a magical time at Christmas. So thank you to everybody involved to make that happen for that neighborhood. On December 17th, I joined the mayor in a Coming Home virtual summit on homelessness. And this morning I toured the studios at Mesa City Center with the mayor and Councilmember Luna, and look forward to the progress on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank staff. We had our swearing in last week, and looking forward for another 4 years to serve the residents of District 1 as well as the community of Mesa. I'm proud to be able to do that with yourself, Councilmember Heredia and Councilmember Spilsbury. So thank you for that. Yes, I've been busy, but I'm going to put some more on the list, and I'll say more on Thursday. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I'll take a brief, oh yes, Councilmember Spilsbury, welcome.
Thank you. This is my first meeting, so it's exciting to be official. And I just wanted to put out there that it's been great. Since I got elected early August, I've had 5 months to kind of familiarize myself with things and get to see a lot of neat things going on in the city. I was able to do a police ride-along, a tour of my local fire station. I got to be part of a SWAT training with the bomb squad and the K-9 unit, and I've got to tour the Museum of Natural History, the Idea Museum, volunteered several times with the food assistance program, the food distribution, and it's just been really neat to see the way everything works together in the city, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Thank you, Councilmember Spilsbury. Well, I'll welcome you again in the next meeting, but I think you've gone through basic training here for the last several months. I think you're the newcomer, but I'm afraid there's a lot that you know that I don't now, because you've been working very hard to come up to speed. So thanks for your hard work getting ready for this.
Thank you.
You bet. Council, other comments under this agenda item? I'll take a quick note. I know Council, we typically go to events where we honor our employees that have achieved, 5 or 10 or 15-year service awards. And those are awards that are signed by and presented by our city manager. Well, Mr. Brady just received a 15-year service award. And so I guess it's up to me to point that out and to congratulate him, because he's not going to do it for himself. But we just heard a great presentation about what a great city we have, and what a great city government organization we have, and how adept they are at adapting and being nimble and pivoting. And that's because we have strong leadership at our city. Something we haven't talked about a lot lately is we just got our bond rating updated to AAA. So in spite of all the challenges that we've experienced as a community tied to COVID, Mr. Brady and his team have managed to continue to keep the trains running on time and to make progress on business as usual as well. So, Mr. Brady, I just want to, on behalf of our council and a grateful community, congratulate you on 15 years as our city manager. And we look forward to the next 15 as well.
Thank you, Mayor.
The next item on our agenda is scheduling future meetings. Mr. Brady, what does that look like?
Mayor and Council, we'll see you on Thursday for a study session beginning at 7:30. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes the business on this agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Seconded by Councilmember Duff. We'll do a voice vote, so please unmute your microphones. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank you. We are adjourned, and why don't we take a 5-minute recess before we start, we roll the video for the next meeting.